Hey everyone. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about with this chapter. We learn the history of the Saint Fire Church and just the role that Saint Fire Knox is plays in that. We learn the origins of Rebecca's powers, which and their ties to the church. We learn how Rachel and Connor met. But more than anything else, I think the one thing that this chapter touches upon more than anything else is the theme of a mother's love. Rachel, she suffered her entire life. She was raised by the church, and just by a simple act of, disobedience, of falling in love with Connor and conceiving Rebecca, her entire life was just meant for suffering. She tried so hard in order to ensure in order to find a future, find some timeline, any timeline where her husband, her daughter lived, and she suffered in order to try to find a timeline where they could live in peace. But in doing so, there were so many instant timelines where both of them died, to the point where and it got so bad to the point where at that point the only thing she cared about at that point was just finding a timeline where they pretty much lived. But by the time by the time she found said timeline, this current timeline, I suppose, she realized that probably the only and the best way that she could in order to even make sure they survived was to just distance themselves. Yes, Rachel abandoned them, obviously, but she abandoned them because it was the only way that she felt that would pretty much secure their safety, and that their safety of her daughter could be secured. That Rebecca would live on. In order to see any kind of a future. It really is interesting how sometimes what we perceive as abandonment, as being a bad thing as being just an evil thing to do, abandonment can sometimes also show how that person actually does pretty much care about you. But sometimes the abandonment part is because they're forced to make a difficult choice, a choice they really don't want to make, but a choice that they're forced to make nonetheless. Like I hate to say it, but the Saint Fire Church in itself are made up of damn cultists. That's what ultimately spurred Rachel's decision in order to abandon her family, is because the church was so fanatical at the time about their ideals that all she could do in order to make sure that her family lived a happy life was to just distance herself from them. That's all she could do. And it is sometimes in the difficult choices where I think as weird as it is to say, I think it is in those difficult choices that shows just how much we actually love the people we care about. And I feel that's kind of the message that's going on here. Now, obviously, the other thing about it too is that again, one of the bigger things we learn about this chapter is that yes, the pretty much the power of Cat Leaper is sort of passed down from it is in fact a power that Rachel possesses, and it was a power that was passed down to Rebecca as well. And upon hearing the story about Rachel's life, about Rachel's life and the connections Cat Leaper has to the Church of Saint Fire, it almost makes me wonder if it almost kind of makes me wonder too, like a lot of the beginning portions of the series, specifically the Drac and Joe arc, and how much Drac and Joe actually fucking knew about all this. Like how much did she know that Rebecca's power was pretty much tied to the Church of Saintfire. How much did he know about Rebecca's connection to that organization and that Rachel was her mother? Like, I'm just like this is one of those chapters that does have me looking back on the series and saying, how much did Drac and Joe know? Like he pretty much had, like he had to have at least done a modicum of research on the idea of in all his research that he did about the whole Cat Leaper ability. He had to have come across something in regards to Saintfire. So it's like, yeah, it does make you look back and say, how much did Drac and Joe know about the connection between Nox or Rachel and Rebecca? I like he had to have known probably at that point. He had to have known, honestly. And honestly, it also makes me wonder how much the cultists might have helped him. Honestly, I don't know. Like that's the other thing about this. Like, are the cult, like, Rachel pretty much says that the cultists were pretty much like were pretty much exonerated. But the church had kind of, at the time the church had levied, had kind of eased up on a lot of its restrictive policies and whatnot. That makes me, like, the one thing that kind of is interesting is it doesn't really touch on as to what actually happened to the fanatics, to the cultists of the organization. So, like, are they still around? Like, what's going on with them? Like, are they going to be a group we need to worry about now? That's the kind of thing that's the other thing I'm worried about. Like, from the sounds of it, that they're gone, but I don't know if this feels like a bit of setup on Mashima's part, that in some way that either the cultists are going to be maybe a bit of a future antagonist in some way, or that just or maybe this is just his way of saying that the cultists that might have even helped Drac and Joe at some point, but I don't know. Like, it's just got me wondering, like, are the cultists truly gone? Like, that's kind of the thing that worries me a bit right now. That worries me right now because, like, that's the other thing about this too. Like, the whole reunion in itself, it was just a happy, great, and just, it was it was an amazing moment, just seeing mother, father, daughter all. And just seeing Rebecca just kind of leap into the arms of her mother, like, it was all great, but it's also one of those things that has me saying, like, okay, Mashima, is this really gonna have as much of a happy ending for Rebecca as we want it to be, or is Nox gonna die? Because again, going back to the cultists, it feels like that they're not completely out of the picture yet, and just everything in regards, like, and you just, again, that's, I think, the one thing that this chapter does more than anything is that Mashima really feeds on the emotion. This one, like, again, I already explained like the whole thing with Nox and with Rachel and just the sacrifices she made in order to serve your family. But you can, honestly, this is one of those rare chapters where you can really feel for her. Like, honestly, like, I'll be honest, I don't get all that emotional reading manga a lot, but this is one of those rare chapters that really like absolutely tugs at the heartstrings. Like, just the idea of what Rachel did just for the sake of her family. Again, it's just like everything she sacrificed. It truly is commendable on Rachel's part. Even if there are tough choices, even if the choices she made, we may kind of disagree with, we understand why she made those choices. And yeah, it's really something. And to like yeah, it was just an all around great, like, emotionally gripping chapter. Honestly, like each time I could really feel for I could really feel for her, like, but yeah, and I guess one other thing, the other thing that makes me think that the cultists aren't dead yet is that just the fact that he dropped like the whole the location of Mills, Yukino Cosmos, all that shit. It does make me think that we are going to be returning there at some point. But yeah, yeah, guys. Sorry, I know I've been all over the place. That this was a completely unscripted review, but I had to get all my thoughts out on there. But yeah, just was truly the definition of a mother's love kind of chapter. Like, everything Rachel did, she did for her family, for her daughter, and yeah. But yeah, guys, just tell me what you think of this chapter. You can share the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, with the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of MMA signing off. Later, everyone.